BI or Die, the podcast by Reporting Impulse about analytics, dashboards, and business intelligence.
Hello everyone, today there's again a new episode of BI or Die. My name is Kai and together with my co-host Viktoria, we interview another fantastic guest. Hey Viktoria.
Hi Kai.
So hopefully you're well relaxed after your vacation. Are you also looking forward to this podcast today?
Oh yes, I do. We had a little pre-chat before and it sounds really, really interesting. I'm really looking forward. And yes, I'm relaxed. I'm looking forward to work again with you and with our guests.
And also sun-turned, everything is perfect from that perspective. I mean, we're not recording the video, but still we can see each other. So that looks definitely really, really relaxed. Our guest today is Nicolas Michaud. I'm your manager business intelligence at IKEA Germany. So hello, Nicolas.
Hey Kai, hey Viktoria. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Definitely. We're also very happy that you're here. And I think, Viktoria, we mentioned that already in our pre-talk, can score with some French today again, right?
Oui, je peux. Bonjour, Nicolas. C'est bien d'être ici avec toi. Et j'espère on va avoir un très bien podcast aujourd'hui.
C'est une grande chance d'être ici. Merci beaucoup, Viktoria.
I mean, I understood it, but I'm not trying to speak French today. We stay in English, and that's probably the best also for our listeners. I mentioned that you're currently still working at IKEA, and probably everyone from us has something from IKEA at home. I think the older we get, at least we try to limit or reduce the IKEA stuff, but it's quite so practical. So often it's not. I think in the background, my cupboard is also from IKEA. So everyone has something. But still, if you're an employee, are you still shopping at IKEA?
Oh yes, of course. You have to understand that at IKEA we also recruit people because of a specific mindset, right? And one specific, very important feature that we value in people is that they are actually open-minded and, let's say, fact-oriented and pragmatic, but also that they like furniture. I have not met anyone who said, I've never bought at IKEA and I will never do it. Although some would say that, but usually it's not completely true. So nobody is completely closed to buying in the company. Plus, we have an employee rebate, and we receive regularly some gift cards. So yes, we are happy to use the furniture. Plus, the founder of IKEA defined the core values of the company in what's called the Testament of a Furniture Dealer, which every manager at IKEA has read. And the first sentence is, we are all furniture dealers, meaning you're not first an analyst or a finance person or a seller. We are all in the furniture business. So bottom line is we all get an interest into the collection, into what's going on. And at some point, you always find something you want. It's kind of weird, but it's true.
But especially if you stick to IKEA furniture, I also had the experience, especially in Hamburg, when I lived there, that you're also, if you're only having some IKEA, you kind of a furniture reseller or reusing it or selling it via eBay, Kleinanzeigen or whatever, because you can reuse it so many times. And if I then moved from Hamburg to Stuttgart, and there was my wife, and we already have a complete settled apartment here. So I sold many things. So even if I'm not part of IKEA and you still have IKEA furniture, you are also kind of a furniture reseller or a producer, more or less. So that's also quite funny. Or that just came to my mind if you just mentioned that sentence.
When you say that, I read something that IKEA is coming to that point as well, that you can return your furniture, then they sell it in this corner. Is this right? Yeah, Fundgrube. Yeah, right. I don't know in English.
I don't remember right now because I'm working in German in my daily work. This is very true. In fact, this is one thing that we all know at IKEA. This is that our furniture have a second life, if not a third, because they are produced in very big quantities. So the people know the references, people know what they're buying. And therefore, when they're looking for something, they're thinking, oh, I need 3 new billies for my new library or for my cave. And that's how you end up with a second-hand market. On the topic of going in this direction as a company, this is one of the key discussions about our sustainability agenda in English, by the way. That's really the idea to go past simply consuming furniture. So on those topics, there is lots of communications that are done, and I'm not the communication officer, so I am bound not to speak too much into that. But indeed, the idea is that the customers can actually use the furniture not as something that you throw away, but something that is giving you a service.
And also in preparation to this podcast, I wondered how we get in touch initially, actually. And I came to, at least it was in my mind, that it wasn't digital, as it quite something special nowadays. I think we must have met on a small event in Frankfurt, if I remember that correctly. I think we were having a little talk there about SAC and standard reportings and stuff like that. It should be around 4 or 5 years ago. At that time, you, I think, were in the early days of your IKEA experience. And now, 4 or 5 years later, you're taking on a new challenge, I think, in the analytics area of healthcare. Maybe we talked a lot about IKEA, but maybe you can also give more or less an outlook. What are you going to do in 4 or 5 weeks, I think, from now, from the recording day? Yeah, what will be your new task and why did you change that?
That's a bit of a long story. So let's say it as follows. IKEA has undergone a reorganization about 1 year ago and has centralized the analytical functions in Sweden. I wouldn't move to Sweden for personal reasons because my wife has also a career here in the Rhine-Main region and we are both very attached to it. I mean, I've already spent a long time to integrate in Germany. Actually, we could have this talk in German with no sweat from my side. And it's already been an effort. I don't want to integrate to a new country, to be honest, not as my wife, because she was coming from Poland originally. So that we stay here. But this means that right now I'm doing more of business analytics than data analytics. And that's not exactly where my heart is. So therefore, I was looking for something different and looking for a company which is much more focusing at changing its business model, working on it, because that's where analytics can bring the highest value. In companies that are very established, job of the analyst is very different. So I've chosen to join Qualifies because this is a company which is still in a very early stage. There are 30 people, still with a very strong startup mentality. I will be the oldest employee, pretty much by far. So it's been discussion during the interviews, was quite fun. And yes, for the moment, the job is as big as I can think because the sheet is partly blank. They need what they call the data guy. We have found another title for it, but bottom line is I'm going there. I will turn on my brain and we'll find out what we can do with data to make the company very solid. A lot is to be invented, and that's what makes it so exciting. The perfect analytics job.
Definitely, and also a huge change, I would say, from this global, huge construct to a really small one. Fantastic, very cool experience. I mean, we made it similarly. We just discussed it before. We're also working in rather small companies where you have all those personal things you can think of and really defining your job more or less. It's not any job description you get from above more or less. So yeah, totally agree that this will be a definitely fun experience, hopefully for you.
I can just say the same sentence. Coming from a huge company, going to a small, founding a small, it's really another work, but it's really worth to do that.
You know, for me, the very important thing, I think that the way I rationalize this experience or this feeling is when you start in a small company, actually a lot of the processes, the business model itself, a lot is still in flow, like things are not already sorted out. So you need actually analytics as a way to actually be database, to understand facts, to discover opportunities, think sometimes also strategically. And this is a very ad hoc world. where you would work on solving problems, solving questions. When you are in a bigger company, like for example IKEA, you already have a lot that is already being codified, even 20 to 30 years ago. That's things the company stands for. And that's where you will be optimizing some reporting, optimizing some operations. And the approach is quite different. And on top of that, because it's so large and it's global, you have, as an analyst in a market, so this means as the responsible for analytics in a country, you have to simply let go, because some of the analysis, some of the reports and everything need to be done at a global scale. Otherwise, they make much less sense, because you benchmark your local market with that of France, with that of UK, with the US or China. And that's the way it should be. On those situations, you pretty much stay in the way if you want to go too deep. So that's something that you have to learn for yourself and live with that. This is sometimes your favorite topic is going away. And yeah, well, in a small company, there is probably the other challenge, which is you really want sometimes to do this analysis, yet it's not the most important thing to do right now. But at least you are part of the decision. It's not imposed from outside. So I think this is this kind of mental freedom that is possibly something that analysts cherish, the possibility to influence your roadmap.
Definitely. Yeah. I can totally figure that out. And above all, I think there's a lot of policy included in larger associations beyond the things you described here. So yeah, but I think that is enough of this preface. Let's start with our real questions, more or less. There are two versions. There are the private ones and the business ones. But with I don't know, Viktoria, you can choose. What are the first ones?
We start with we already started with the professional ones, so maybe we turn around and do some business stuff, the normal five question, and then in the end we get a little private talk in the end.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so let's start with the first question. As we have said, you have already worked a long time, I think over 15 years in business intelligence. 21 already. Oh, okay. Even more. Okay. And so you have a lot of experience, and you know, like us, that changed a lot. What do you think changed most, or what are your experience where you see the trend going?
That's a very interesting question. To summarize this, it's a bit of a challenge. So let me put it that way. As I started in the field of data analytics and BI, first, let me say I link both in terms of a historical continuity. When I started in the job, I actually discovered the field of business intelligence. Business intelligence, the idea was focusing very heavily on reports, like access to data. I put the data in forms so people can actually take decisions. In time, the business intelligence has evolved into data analytics and into data science. Why? Simply because it's not enough to give it data. It is important to give the right data to the right person about the right topic at the right time. Many BI projects back then, in the early 2000s, actually failed because the data would come too late, or the question wasn't the right one, or the business wasn't involved. And this has all evolved, I think, in line with the growth of the startups and the digital era, because new companies came with models that were much more agile, companies that were evolving like by the hour almost. And this meant that the access to data was more about solving problems rather than simply making sure that the manager can do his job, because the job of the manager itself would change. One day you would do this, the other day you would do that. And this is why I think we have all turned into a much more problem-solving approach. This is especially drastic in my case because I have learned data analytics, the most modern data analytics from an American group, which was meant by people coming from McKinsey, Accenture, and stuff. They always started with the problem and then said, sometimes you can solve the problem simply by pulling a PowerPoint from 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago with the figure that is 80% correct. And I think this is a very key evolution in the field of data analytics, that the people are more and more aware of the problem-solving approach. And because of that, they're also much closer from the business questions. And in the same time, the business, like the users, have grown more and more aware of the importance of data and the importance of business intelligence, and are starting to get, well, not only starting, but have grown more and more capable of asking the right questions. What do you think? Can we solve this problem? And now the second very big evolution in the brand is to turn data into a product. Back then, we were focusing at giving access to data in a report or in an Excel so that someone could take a decision, and this decision was transferred to the organization and was carried over by people. You would create a score for a CRM tool so that the people would prioritize their tasks. Nowadays, very modern, you produce an analysis, often in Python or R, that produces this score and feeds it directly to engines that will automate already a part of the actions. So this is turning the insight and recommendation already into an action. This is an evolution that is quite difficult, and I think we're still in the doing, like making this happen. It won't work for every business, but this is very clearly one of the big questions that come over and over again when you do some interviews, talk with peers or whichever. This is, let's not stop at the recommendation, or let's not stop at the figures. Let's do the last mile and make sure that the operations are already automated.
I think that's a really, really important point you mentioned. Just to address, I think there's a third point. Maybe it's the data is available because years ago, I remember you had your SAP, but there was nothing. Nobody was thinking of marketing data. I remember, like, we wanted to do a marketing dashboard, and I say, we can do the turnover and what else. Now you're talking about CRM system like Salesforce or whatever, and they are directly connected, and even in a lake or some kind of data warehouse together with your other systems, and even further. So I think the availability of data and what you said, the time you spend getting this data is so much reduced. So I think there was done a lot of work in the last 10 to 20 years.
You're very right. For me, the key evolution there is big data. When I started in BI, back then we would spend incredible amounts of time learning to create a data warehouse and data marts, simply so that our reports would open within 2 minutes, because the data would be too slow. Now with big data, there is simply no boundaries anymore to any kind of analysis we're doing. And back then, we would have data engineers, so ETL specialists, we would call them back then, who would be there to actually put the data in form, would message them until they go into the format that was predefined. But nowadays, you can, in many cases, take an analyst, throw him to a bunch of tables which he can join, and actually create an impact without much external help if the data is not too crappy. So that's a very big change, because back then you would need to really structure your entire team. But I remember a discussion that you guys have monitored a few days ago with the concept of the data steward. The data steward is a role. I was so excited during this discussion because I had established a very key position in my team without having discussed it with anybody else. I had specialized someone as data architect, like the person who is responsible to find out where is the right data to speak about which topic. And also set some quality criteria on this data. Creating this position has gone a long way into building of the team that would work, because we would know what is right and what is wrong, and would cut a lot on debates about how do we build this analysis, where is the data, how do we access. It was massive. So nowadays, less ETL specialists and more data stewards.
Definitely. I mean, there's always this team approach, I would say. They're always the IT guys, they're always the business guys. But in the older days, I would say there was more the focus on the IT guys, because the technology behind it was just so complex and building just a dashboard or anything was just you needed just more know-how, or was just more complicated, took more time. And now I think there's also the guys from the business also moving in that direction, and so they're coming closer, and it's always really, as you said it, bringing the business value, the added value from the business. That's an important fact. And if you're then going from both direction, from IT and also from business into the same thing, then there's more focus on the data aspects, or on business intelligence, or however you call it, and then it's generating more added value for the company, and in turn of that, it's getting more popular.
Yes, clearly the management has learned to work with data. They've learned to bring new types of insights, not always refer to the mental framework the company was moving in, and propose new stuff, which is okay if you base it on data. And because of this, yes, it has become the job of many business managers to actually get an interest in data. And that has changed also a lot, the way we work in a company. So I can say, well, I started working as a consultant for 2 years, then spent 6 years at Aventis, now Sanofi. And I could really see this evolution in live almost. It's been there is one role that was very, very close also and important, I think, in this function. This is the role of the controller. As a matter of fact, I've been also working in the middle of my career as a controller, as a head of controlling, because the company that recruited me needed someone to head this team, but also modernize it with real reports. So they needed someone who could do the job as a controller and also build the reporting more in the BI aspect. And this type of jobs has become more and more evolving into business analytics, because the controller has 1.5 foot, a bit difficult, but you can do it, in the accounting world, like cost centers, reporting structures, invoicing, but in the same time into business modeling and bringing insights. So those guys have done the reverse movement to go, well, not the reverse movement, but the mirror movement to go more and more towards data and less precise. And both worlds have blended a bit together to become what we have now, meaning business analytics, data analytics teams serving the decision-taking in the larger companies to directly change in an agile mode the business model.
I mean, you slightly addressed it, and we discussed it more or less about the roles in the company, but you can also have a look at from an industry perspective, and you described that you have insights into several industries so far. Did you observe any differences? Or, for example, I mean, the retail industry you're working is often seen as kind of the pioneers in business analytics, or often they pioneer aspects in business analytics. But are there any aspects you say, okay, here is your industry or a specific industry especially ahead, or what can they learn from them, or what are your thoughts in that direction?
So this type of discussions is precisely the reason why, one of the main reasons why I'm trying to connect with peers and exchange, and why I'm here to discuss with you guys. My perception so far is limited to my own experiences. For me, there are some very large differences depending on the maturity of the company and the nature of its operations. You have the question if the company is an industry, or if it's retail, or if it's B2C, is it, or B2B, is it an online player, is it multi-channel or omnichannel? It impacts things like how much can you project to changing the operations quickly. This has to do a lot with the structure of your investments, but also regulations. If you can't change your operations very quickly, you are going to have a very different type of approach with analytics, because you can't turn around your business model within 2 years like you could with a tech company. As a comparison to this Sanofi world is the world I experienced at HomeAway. HomeAway is a marketplace specialized on vacation rental. It was the leader of the market before Airbnb. And HomeAway was simply a website. So the website, you can tweak it, optimize it as much as you want. It only takes a call with the engineering team. This is completely different than if you're working with the industry. You don't even have to deliver any type of object. You only manage contracts. You simply do intermediation between an owner and a traveler. And at the end, you only have to sell a promise. So this is a very, very light business, which you can change very quickly. So of course, the data analysts are going to be much freer. because you can work on, for example, we have turned around our business model from subscription based, where the owner would pay a fee for the year to be listed on the website, to a commission based model. It took 1.5 years to get our revenues generated when the traveler would actually book a stay at a home. This goes incredibly fast if you think about it, because it changed everything. It included the way we pay, the way we follow up with the customer service. So that's the kind of things you can do in a more tech-oriented company, but not in the industry. And as to retailers, it is the IKEA being a bit of a pioneer there in terms of omnichannel, because IKEA has already a very high penetration on the online. Already before COVID, we're already at 10% online sales. The business becomes so complicated that we would probably need 2 or 3 podcasts to cover it all.
That's a really good point, because that's coming to my third question already. Because as you said, there are so many special things with multi-channel management. You have a lot of challenges in the data management with the different channels. On the other hand, you have special opportunities using it. What experience do you have with that, and could you give some insights for our listeners there?
That's a very interesting question. So you're asking about the opportunities we could seize related to omnichannel.
Yeah, I remember, for example, when I was really young, I was writing my thesis in the retail sector and trying to have this omni-channel thing, for example, for the clothing sector especially. And they are selling in the online market and in the stores as well. So you want to know the client, the customer, in whole. So it doesn't matter if he bought something in the store or online. You want to understand him. Is he more attracted by online? Is he more attracted by stores? Can I do some kind of advertising online, and it affects my his store? How often he goes to the stores and stuff like this. Is do he uses and do some comparison during his shop, in staying in the shop and looking for better offers in my online shop, so I have to have the same prices, etc. And this is, can I even go when I see what he's using to adapt my prices maybe for him online or whatever? Do you have some kind of experience like that?
So the opportunities related to omnichannel are there is a lot that is already thought through, or there was a lot of imagination, conceptual work done on that in the press, on the markets, and everything. And that's one of the things that's been communicated a lot on, I would say, on a global scale. Practically, it is much more difficult, because one of the key questions here is the tracking of the customers. Because if you want to be able to do a good work at omnichannel, you have to track the customer in the beginning of his customer journey. This is a concept we use a lot at IKEA to understand actually how customers get inspired. First, get to understand that they have a need, get inspired, decide that they go to actually do some research and decide where to buy, and even do the after sales. So at the beginning of the customer journey, you would need to trace actually who is coming to your website doing what. And then see if this person has converted. And then see, has this person been in a store? And has she converted? Let's say she, because 66% of our customers are female. So if not even 75. So we have to be very clear. We are in Germany. We don't do this type of things. And it's certainly not at IKEA, because IKEA is very cautious related to data privacy. So we don't do fancy stuff that you could read in the American press, because, gosh, we are in Europe. We have very different approach about data privacy. So I'm going to disappoint you a bit, Victoria. It's not like in the movies. So,
damn.
Yeah, a bit damn. Yeah, because
luck for the customer, bad for the analyst.
Well, it depends. Maybe we could get even a better experience if our data would be more open. I mean, you could also see it from that direction, maybe.
But that's a real society debate that has to be taken.
Definitely
be done.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's been partly done already. People are simply worried about a world where a company could track them. And so we don't go there. So we use derived means to actually try to do a good job there. We anonymize data to make sure we can't recognize a specific customer and try to group them in terms of behavior patterns. And for that, we segment the behavior patterns into the different segments that we can track within the legal framework, but also it is linked with the tools because the data integration is also sometimes an issue. So yes, we look at how people actually search on the site to get inspired. We look at how people actually convert, especially a very key question is how do people want to get their merchandise? It's very different if you sell a kitchen or if you sell a few cushions or even a kitchen pan. That this one is very important. And then related to the stores, that's where we have a series of studies which are more like market studies, but we also rely a lot on the sales teams. In fact, IKEA is already over 70 years old. Imagine 70 years old of experience. We have people that have been working in our sales for 30, 35 years. Careers are very long at IKEA because I've seen many colleagues that have started at IKEA and will go in retirement, having not changed the company. Those people have been said all the time through all the positions. They are furniture resellers. And so they've grown an incredible experience. And that's the first way to go at IKEA. We first focus at what have customers said. And then we compare it with the data we have and develop our offers. So in terms of data analytics, it's a bit less fancy. We have to be a bit humble and accept that we are not going to give every solution. For the opportunities that we've raised, honestly, we are trying to clean a bit the place. One of the key questions, for example, is related to pricing. One of the questions you just said, like setting prices dynamically on the website. It is not something you can do when you are an omnichannel reseller, retail, because you are bound by some rules that say that you have to have the same prices in a store and online. And on top of that, if you have a very famous catalog, you are bound by the prices you put in the catalog for a full year. And against that, you have a company like, for example, Otto, who doesn't have that. And they can actually adjust their prices, or you take Wayfair or anything. Those people can build an engine that is adapting their prices dynamically. And we won't do that. And this is difficult because one of the promises of IKEA is to have a very good value proposition in terms of pricing. So we want to be the cheapest on the market for specific references. It is very hard to do when your competition can adjust their prices dynamically like this. So that's topics that are currently under work in Sweden for globally and are absolutely fascinating to observe. But I don't think we are going to be the ones who are going to write a book on this one. Because of the constraints of omnichannel and the constraints of the IKEA strategy, we are going to do things that are going to go a long way, but are not probably going to be innovative, like the most innovative approaches from the digital world, because we are constrained. Perhaps I will be proven wrong, but that's a bit my feeling. The real message here is you have to understand IKEA first has a strategy, has a promise, stands for some specific concepts that go way beyond going full digital. And doing a good job at selling a kitchen goes mentally at IKEA way higher than doing fantastically fashionable things in digital.
You're really pointing out some really good things. I think the constraint with data and data use. I think it's for every analyst some kind of subject which is really disturbing on one side, but really important on the other side. It's really important, and that you and on the other side that you don't risk your business just because of being even more fancy and doing stuff. I think it's really important points. As you already answered my question, I wanted to put in here about improving customer experience in store design with data. I wanted to go back to your HomeAway job and asking you there, because like you said, I was on holiday and we were in a house there, like from which we booked on a website, and like Fevo or something. This was another one, but
It's the same.
we were it's the
Fevo
same.
Direct.
Okay, it's even
Fevo Direct. You mean Fevo Direct, right?
yeah.
Fevo Direct is the local brand of HomeAway.
Funny. Okay, I didn't know, so I learned something as well. And I was thinking, there was another third party providing us. It was Novasol and this in this thing, and we were thinking, and that it's a really good business case, for example, that for local people, that you offer them, that you say, hey, it's really good if you put Whirlpool there, because people are looking for Whirlpools all the time, and then you can sell it like 10% higher or something. Is it a business case, giving people this information, or people who want to rent their apartment, saying, hey, okay, if you change your apartment like this, your possibility to rent your apartment will increase? Is this something you can do, or you do?
That they do, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Exactly in the way you were describing it. That's
okay.
In fact, this is a project that started with me a bit. Not that I have incepted it, but I've worked a lot on this. To tell you a bit the story, to make it interesting, so HomeAway was a merger between different brands, like Fevo Direct from one side, Abritel in France, we had VRBO in the US, and the HomeAway native brand. So we all blend those sites, and at the beginning we had like 10,000 listings, so 10,000 houses from Fevo in Spain, 6,000 from Abritel. So you can imagine we had lists of flats based on different geographical hierarchies coming from different sites from different countries. So you had a problem of geographical hierarchies, problem of languages, problem of whichever you want. And we didn't have a consolidated view about what we have of Mallorca. And Mallorca is relatively easy to say because Mallorca is an island. But if you take, for example, South Spain, how do you organize this in terms of data? Because it's all around the place. So we had a lot of harmonization to do related to all the dimensions and how we compare listings with one another and how we cluster them. And once we could do that, that's where we could actually see that on a place, we have houses that perform better than the others. And that's where we could use the analytics on amenities, but much more important is very often positioning, like where is it in the destination itself. That's very important. One aspect that really blew my mind in my data was the question of how do people research for a vacation rental in a place. Perhaps you can relate to it, but when you start your research, you're thinking in terms of keywords. So what do you start with? You start for Tuscany, or do you go down? Do you already know a specific village? Do you already know a specific beach, or whichever? And at the end, doing this work of blending all the geographical approaches, I could see that the more intensive the travel pattern was to a specific zone, the more specific the search was. Like, for example, Germans know very well Tuscany, know very well Mallorca, so they go down very granular, and the locals are always the best. So if you want to split geographically a zone, go for the search patterns of the Italians for Italy, Spanish for Spain. Sounds logical, but in the same time, it's the question, is it relevant for the Germans? So absolutely amazing analysis, and I have a huge smile when I'm saying this because it's been a party to do this type of job. And what was really one of the highlights in my career is the day I was put in a team working directly with Google, because we had this baklava project where Google opened up their data on search patterns directly on the search bar. So we could have a lot of data there to understand how people were actually trying to get information on travel destinations. And we would compare that with our own work and try to understand what's happening in the heads of people when they're looking for destinations. Because once you can say, to go back to the amenities, once you can say that two places, like that two flats are similar, or let's say two villas, that's where you can compute the impact of having a whirlpool. Because otherwise, if you compare one villa that is 20 kilometers from the beach with one that is almost in the city center, you're going to be completely blurred with the amenities thing. So you have so many things to fix first in terms of geography and stuff with data that is absolutely not like having a clean dimension. That's been a place where we had to be inspired, inventive, creative, and we didn't have a book to do that. We couldn't pick a book and see, okay, that's how people do that. No, that was really new. It was cool like hell.
I mean, we are almost running out of time, I would say, but maybe we're getting closer. And I know I'm open up now quite a huge topic with the fifth question, more or less. But maybe just to summarize the most essential points you experienced so far, and it was also part of our pre-discussion. I mean, we discussed technologies more or less and cool things you can get out of the data. But at the end of the day, there's also the human part, the organization of your team, which is quite necessary to provide the best possible environment so that they can do all those interesting and mind-blowing stuff you described. So what are, from your point of view, the must-dos for the future that you as a leader or as someone who's organizing a team gets the best possible environment for your employees, that they've been creative and doing all those mind-blowing things?
That's a topic I've spent some time on because I've created a 10-people team at IKEA DE. So I was asked during the interview to actually do a presentation on this. And for me, the main aspects are related to having a clear mindset in terms of values for the team, having a clear work environment where you have a work environment in terms of infrastructure, in terms of tools, which must be tools that actually make sense, even for the career of the employees. Because it is one thing that you have all the data organized and ready to access. It has also to be on a tool that actually makes sense for the people to learn. Because if you're working on a very old technology, the people will feel menaced in their career growth that they are learning the wrong thing. Because we all know that the technology is evolving and you can't simply stay working on BO50 from 2005, right? So you have to stick with that. So
what kind of tools are you using at IKEA?
So I wanted to use Tableau, but for corporate reasons, we decided to go for ClickSense, and we're very happy. Our stake was we had an Oracle database, we had ClickSense, and we're using the Oracle ETI to actually build our tables. It was relatively simple. Technology, well, Oracle is not like the most important one on the market, but we had the people that could work with it, and it was very much in usage in IKEA, so it made sense. But ClickSense, Python, and R were our tools of choice, very clearly. Very important also, and for that we have been super vanilla in our approach, was Google Analytics and BigQuery. Two tools that I am absolutely amazed about because they are fantastic and they evolve permanently, and we've done so much with these. For the moment, I still am looking for the point where I will say that's the limit of the tool. But you see, I really started with the idea, limited number of applications with broader usage, and we try to reuse things because with a team of 10 people, you can't simply have too many tools. The idea was really also to have redundant capacities so that the people can exchange with one another. This was also a very important aspect, which I didn't cover first with the values and the environment. It is to have a team, like people that can talk with one another, because an analyst alone is going to be someone who will be encountering difficulties, because usually you need to talk about your approaches, make sure that you are doing it the right way. Otherwise, very quickly, you are going to cut corners and are possibly not going to do a very reusable approach, or you are going to develop your own style and are going to take dead ends. So having a team where the people can actually share among peers is very important. I think it's important to have at least 3 or 4 analysts that can talk with one another because they're using similar tools and are working with similar problems or problems that are connected with one another. So team, values, environment, and after that, the entire business context, meaning you need to have a good connection with the business and have a clean roadmap that is connected with the strategic orientations.
I think also Jack described that quite cool in the podcast we have earlier. It takes a data village. So
yes,
he also described it on a broader way, and also within the team aspect, really working as a team, being a team, and not saying, okay, we are some counterparts or we are opponents or whatever. So we are together working on something that's beyond our own personal targets. I think this is establishing that. Plus the things like the modern environment, the modern tools, the infrastructure you mentioned, having the clear and common mindset, that's definitely very, very important.
Yeah. A very key aspect about the establishing an analytics team is to have some kind of moral contract with the analysts, that the job of the analyst is to provide answers and not to do fancy reports. This means that I've always said very transparently to my team, if you find the answer in an old slideshow with data that matches 80%, that's okay. Like this, you go to the next topic in the roadmap, which may be potentially even more technical, where you will learn even more things. But your job is to provide answers. This is how I'm going to measure you. In the same time, and I'm very clear with them, my job is to make sure that you grow professionally, which means that you also meet analysis that bring you forward related to your appetite. So there is like a balance to find here, but to be sure that you get all the means that you need to nurture a team, like budgets, tools, and everything, you have to make sure to show the people that you're doing it with a purpose, which is solve the problems of the business. And for that, you can be sometimes going a long way just thinking. Shut down the computer, think.
That's definitely. And in each and every situation, it could be under the shower, it could be while having some fun with the kids, whatever. So this is also then a flexible environment necessary, and also a huge challenge in larger corporations to make that all happen and being flexible enough.
That's a good bridge for our for finishing the business part and asking you, like, in a 1 minute thing, some personal question. You just have to choose. I give you 2 options for 5 questions, and you choose. So, backpacking or all inclusive?
All inclusive by far.
Okay. Novel or business journal?
Novel. Science fiction novel.
Good. More French or more German?
I have to choose.
Clear answer, I would say.
Let's say both, but
Okay.
Sometimes I prefer French, sometimes I prefer German, depending on what I'm doing. When I'm writing technical documentation, I prefer German because it's much more precise. I love German for many, many cases.
Well, I wouldn't expect that from a French
Let's do
guy.
another podcast on usage of German in technical aspects. I'll make you a believer.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
House or apartment?
House.
Okay, really interesting. Especially the French-German part. Yeah, we have to discuss this later on, I guess. Backpacking all inclusive as well.
You know, there is one thing here. I have left for a different country. I've immigrated to Germany, which means that exotic and discovering things is my daily life. And when I'm going on holidays, sometimes I simply want to go to a place in France and have my keys and speak only French for 5 days. So this is also explaining why I'm less backpacking and stuff, because I'm out of my comfort zone almost every day. So
Yeah, that's a good point. That's really...
Well, we can say only thank you very much. Thank you for your personal insights and also for your many insights into your business, into your thoughts about how to set up a team and all your experience at IKEA and your other companies you shared with us. I think there was a lot of very good insights for our listeners. So yeah, that's the moment we say goodbye. And again, thank you very much. And it is a good old tradition. We remain or leave the last words to our guests. So yeah, please say something better than thank you. But yeah, the stage is yours. We say bye-bye and you have the last words. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Viktoria. Thank you, Kai. My last words is, honestly, in my career, what I've seen is it is invaluable to simply exchange with peers. And although I've moved from one team to the other, and I've seen different contexts, I've always kept track of what were my former colleagues doing. And I've exchanged regularly with them, and this has proven very, very useful in the future. And this is why I'm so happy to network with you guys today and exchange, because this is what brings someone forward. Because everything I've said in these podcasts are things I was told, things I've exchanged, and there is so much that still has to happen in the future. And it's not something you can do when you are sitting at your desk and only talking with the same 5 people again and again for 20 years.
Thanks for listening to BI or Die, a podcast by Reporting Impulse. If you enjoy our content, please press the like button and subscribe to our podcast so you do not miss another episode. See you next time.